Auburn's football coaches are on the road. We're going to talk about which ones are out there and what they might be doing and where they might be going on this edition of E2C Network Live. Good morning, Auburn family and E2C Network family. It is another edition of E2C Network Live where we get together, we sit down, and we talk about something going on in the world of the Auburn family spectrum. We're always heavy on the sports here on this channel, but if it's orange and blue, it is what we do. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you're watching live, whether you're watching on the replay. We appreciate you being here, hanging out with us, spending some time talking about this particular topic and something that is related to the Auburn family. As has been the case in our Good Morning Auburn segments, this is a live stream dedicated towards some discussion and hopefully some interaction with all of you that are watching live. We appreciate those of you that watch the replay, but we'll mainly be discussing and interacting with those of you that are here for the live stream. So as you come into the stream today, do a couple things for me. Make sure that you smash the like button as you come in. That is a huge help. Helps people know that we're live. Excuse me. Helps people know that they can come back and watch the stream, that we did this particular topic. And right now, as you are watching, please do make sure that you post in the chat right now where you're watching from, your city, your state, if you're international, all that good stuff with a war eagle. Want to know who's watching this morning or throughout the day as you're watching the replay. So this particular topic, Auburn coaches on the road. Yesterday on social media, if you are on Twitter, you will have noticed that they posted several of the coaches were hitting the road with a Cadillac, I believe it was. I don't actually know what the brand of car it was, but they had a little car and then Jordan Hare in the background and then the coach and where they were going. And, you know, it's not that they've ever hidden where they're heading before on the recruiting, but they made a big deal about some of these places yesterday. So I just found it quite intriguing. So in our little graphic that we've made there, you can see some of them, but we're going to just talk about who's out on the road, what they might be doing, and where they're heading right now. Obviously, this is out on the recruiting trail, and I think most of you would assume, and most of you would also agree that this is for mainly, if not completely, for the 2024 class and beyond. Recruiting for that's already started. You know, we've already got one 2024 recruit, but you can imagine going out there and building relationships with recruits. But also the big thing is building relationships with high schools, coaches and staffs, and the schools themselves is a big thing too. And some of those people, we got confirmation that they were out there building a relationship with particular coaches and stuff like that. So that's what we're mainly going to discuss here today. I'm going to give you that little bit of information, hear any of your thoughts on it, and then that'll be our morning show. So kind of a little bit of a pushing it out there topic this morning. Nothing really big and major like adding a player, but wanted to cover this thing because I found it interesting yesterday. So who are the coaches that we know officially went out on the road based off of the social media posts? It's important to note that these are not all the coaches that were out, that all the coaches that were probably doing things yesterday. If you spend all your time on social media, which I probably spend way too much time, you could probably figure out exactly who was offered what yesterday, all the kind of stuff that was going on yesterday. And we actually don't even know if yesterday is when they went on these trips or they were just announcing them yesterday that they were going to be taking them. But just for the sake of discussion, for the sake of your information, I want to give you that right now to discuss. Your coaches that were announced yesterday to go out on the road: Coach Carnell Williams, running backs coach, assistant head coach, defensive line coach Jeremy Garrett, offensive line coach Jake Thornton, wide receiver coach Marcus Davis, tight ends coach, and I'm probably still going to mispronounce this, Ben. I'm sorry, Ben Agamoa, I think is how you say it. And then defensive back coach Zach Etheridge. And then we also got confirmation that Wesley McGriff went out and did something as well yesterday and went out to meet with a high school thing. So, you know, a lot of people were asking where are the offensive coordinators? Why didn't Coach Hugh Freeze? That's why I say we don't know what they did or didn't do yesterday. So I think it's important to note just that this is not probably everything that was done yesterday. So one thing that I want to start off with pointing out to you that I think is very important to think about is where these guys went, and they announced this in their post. Coach Carnell Williams went to Birmingham. Now, this makes a lot of sense that you send essentially the face still of your program. Yes, this is Hugh Freeze's team. Yes, he is the leader. Yes, the buck stops with him now. But in many, many ways, it is not hyperbole to say that this will be and still is Coach Carnell Cadillac Williams' team for quite some time because of what he did for us, because of what he means to us, and because of what he's able to do himself as far as a recruiter. So, of course, you send Carnell Cadillac Williams to the Birmingham area. Now, mind you, when I hear these places that they're going, this doesn't just mean, I'm going to this specific city. Birmingham is a big area with a lot of surrounding suburbs. I would even argue that it wouldn't surprise me if he made a trip even closer to Tuscaloosa, seeing how that's kind of not too far off. And there's recruits and schools there that you want to maintain relationships with. Not that school, but but if you think about it, this is the main thing that I want people to think about. That's not just for 2024, but also for this year and what's left. Jeremiah Cobb, running back. Obviously, a lot of people are still concerned that he may or may not sign. As I continue to reiterate to people, unless you see a sign that that's not going to happen, I wouldn't fret about it too much. But you can bet that the easiest route to, well, there's an argument there. Usually, the quickest routes on the interstate, and that would take you through Montgomery up to Birmingham from Auburn. You can bet probably he stopped in there if he had the time to say hello to Jeremiah Cobb and continue to build that relationship with his position player that's supposed to be there next year. And I just kind of jotted down some names that he might be going up that way to see. These are not, there's not evidence of that or anything like that, but there's an edge rusher in the Birmingham area. That's David Hills, Jordan Ross, safety guy, Travaris Banks at Northridge and Tuscaloosa. Those are just some names that I just kind of looked through some of the lists that you can find online and say, hey, who might he be going to visit or say hello to? I would imagine it was a lot of people. And listen, the rules for recruiting are a little bit convoluted sometimes. So they may not even had in-person visits with these guys, but they make visits just to have faces there at the schools so the programs have somebody to associate it with. That was one of the big things this last go around with the last staff, is that they weren't as good about doing that. So you can bet that Coach Hugh Freeze is going to make sure that he gets his guys in those schools and making relationships again with those players. Speaking of that, one of those relationships that you probably want to continue to repair and build is with Central. I always forget how to say this high school, but going to the Columbus area, we know Wesley McGriff went down there to talk to, the head coach there, Patrick Nix, his son Bo Nix. He used to play for Auburn, but also the father used to play for Auburn too. And you can imagine that the Nix family probably would be a little bit still sore about everything. But they went down there and hung out a little bit. So we know at least Wesley McGriff was in one specific school yesterday. So the Cadillac thing makes sense. That I found that a little bit interesting, but I'm kind of intrigued where everybody else went yesterday on their particular trip across for recruiting, for building relationships. Offensive line coach Jake Thornton went up to North Georgia. Now, most people are thinking that's like the mountains, but to me, North Georgia means anything above Atlanta, which is technically kind of where I am a little bit. And there's a lot of talented areas up here in the Marietta area, north of that. So Jake Thornton was up there. He's the offensive line coach, but, there's a quarterback up there that's kind of high on Auburn's list, Aaron Noland, up here in Langston Hughes in Fairburn, Georgia. So that could be someone that maybe he popped in and saw. Wide receiver coach Marcus Davis went down to South Alabama. Now, let me reiterate, that is not Mobile based on what we saw from another coach posting where they were going to be. That is the South Alabama area. To me, can mean anything basically Montgomery and below, not going into the Mobile area. Because there's a lot of schools down there that get forgotten about, the Eufaula area, the Dothan area, all of that kind of down in that vicinity. And in the lower part of Montgomery is probably where he went to build some relationships. Zach Etheridge went to Mobile, which is a talent-rich area that you want to be having a presence in. Alabama has always dominated in that area. You have to, even though it is an uphill battle fighting there, you always want to have a good presence. And why not send one of your best recruiters, Zach Etheridge, down there to continue to build those relationships? That's Mobile, Alabama. I guess I'm talking like people know where that is. Mobile, Alabama. So far we've covered basically the majority of Alabama, Georgia, at least North Georgia, in those particular areas. But a few other guys went out to some other areas, very interesting. But it makes sense when you know the context of where they're from and all that kind of stuff. You got defensive line coach Jeremy Garrett, who is from Mississippi and spent some time there, obviously, previously. So he is in the state of Mississippi today. Now, to me, this one makes sense because if you're from there, you probably got other reasons to go. But he's out there building relationships in Mississippi. Now, listen, Mississippi is, not a humongous area where Auburn goes and recruits a lot in terms of having a lot of names come out of there. Those are Alabama, Georgia, Florida. Those are the big three pipeline states. But it is important to make sure that you have a presence in that neighboring state so that it doesn't become something that you lose out on all the time and other people go and pluck those diamonds in the rough out of Mississippi. You've had some great names come out of Mississippi. One of the most recent ones, Derek Hall, that you always are thankful that you have had as part of your program. Here's the most interesting one, though, out of all of these that threw everybody a loop when we posted ourselves about it on social media, and it also threw me for a loop. Ben Agumoa went up to the DMV. You heard me right. Ben Agumoa went up to the DMV, tight end coach. Why is he going to the Department of Motor Vehicles? I said the joke. Everybody and their mother yesterday had every bit of those jokes coming out. And it's always funny to me. I'm susceptible to it too. It's almost like people assume that they're the first one to tell that joke and they don't look at the comments and see that everybody else has told that joke. And it's kind of like, oh my gosh, just look. Apparently, DMV, not in the transportation sense, but in the geographical sense for the United States, means District of Columbia or DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And I actually may have that backwards. It may be DVM, but then that would be Doctorate of Veterinary Medicine. Anyway, either way, the acronym stands for something else normally, and it can get confusing. But he went up there. Now, you don't see Auburn going up that way a lot. So I found that really interesting. So when I saw the list come out yesterday, I saw Georgia. I saw all over Alabama. I even saw Mississippi. I said, makes sense, right? Surely we're going to see like Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina. We're going to see maybe lower Florida, maybe even Louisiana or Texas. But up there, that is interesting. Why would you be going up there? Well, they did just recently come from there, so I can imagine that this was a dual-purpose trip for him and his family. Still continued to move over, I'm sure, since he came from Liberty with Hugh Freeze, and that's up in that vicinity. But you never know. There may be some players up there that they're trying to build a relationship with. I just found some names on one of the lists out there that could be who we might be looking at there. Linebacker Christopher Jones up in Virginia, Stratford, Virginia. Interior offensive lineman Jordan Seaton from St. John's in Washington, D.C. So obviously he was sent on a recruiting trip, but sometimes you send to these guys where they have other reasons to go that, but more specifically where they have a relationship already. And we know that Jeremy has been up there for a few years and has a relationship with some of those people up there. And so you try to go and see who you can pluck out of these non-traditional recruiting spots for Auburn and build those relationships. So kind of in summary here, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and apparently DMV or DVM, whatever you want to say, DC, Maryland, and Virginia is where our boys were sent out yesterday and in the coming days to build relationships, to recruit. And we'll see if any dividends come of that. Now, we're not going to be like diving into every aspect of their trip or anything like that. But since they made a big announcement for that yesterday, we wanted to dive into that here and give you the information to mention and talk about so you kind of know what's been going on in terms of the recruiting road. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'll take any final comments and questions that you have related to this or any kind of related to this, if you have something kind of random at the very end here, but let me give you the stuff at the end of the show, like always. If you have not, you need to subscribe because that's how you are knowing that we're live every single morning. But don't miss, you also won't miss things like this. Our next upcoming live stream tonight, Auburn versus LSU post-game reaction show. Do not miss it. It's going to be a lot of fun. You got a lot of options out there for who to watch for these post-game shows these days, and we appreciate you being here and hanging out with us and having us be your choice for post-game shows. That'll be right after the game. Should be around 9 Eastern time, 8 Central is what I believe. Also have our subscriber giveaway going on right now. You got to be subscribed. Drop a comment on this live stream after the fact. It will be an entry for you into that contest. You can be a channel member. You can be a Booster Club member. There's other links in the description that you can take advantage of to help support our content and keep the lights on. But all you have to do is be here, smash the like button, and be part of our little family within the Auburn family. We appreciate you guys doing that for us today. Devin says, interesting how when Harsin was here, when coaches announced they were going on the road, they made fun of for announcing they were doing their job. Now, that's a great point, Devin. That's a great point. So I know a lot of fans are not going to like you even saying that because that kind of airs on a little bit of our own hypocrisy. But that's a great point. Yes, there was a lot of that, but you also have to know kind of where people's minds were at with all of that too. So it makes just a lot of sense. Narratives do change when it's convenient for us and for anybody else. So that is a great point. So yes, to me, this is not, you don't put that out there for the fans. You put that out there for the recruits and the schools knowing that you're coming. I'm sure they already knew that they were coming, but kind of building that rapport that we're on the way to see you and we're making you a priority type of thing. But interesting point to bring up, and I don't disagree with it. We'll see if things change in the future. If people say it's convenient and are just doing their jobs at this point. But regardless, I'm thankful they're doing their jobs. I'm thankful they're on the road. And hopefully in the nearest future, we'll be talking about some updates with 2024 and all of that good stuff as we slowly round out the 2023 recruiting class. I thank you guys so much for tuning in today for Good Morning Auburn. We'll be back again tomorrow morning, 8:30 Eastern time with another topic. And obviously, we hope that you'll be in our post-game live stream tonight for Auburn versus LSU men's basketball game. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle.